Empowering, enlightening, and intelligent. Unprecedented times call for unprecedented conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the LaRue Cafe. Let's talk about it.
Well, hello, we are back again today. I was on a little earlier today and doing my normal rant, but it ended up with something really good, ended up with a prayer. And thank you for the few hundreds of you who have watched it and you're continuing to watch it. I really, really do appreciate it. And as you know, I believe so strongly in prayer. I don't push religion. I would never do that. But I do push spirituality. I just think that we need something a little bigger than we are. So, as promised, we have a special guest who's coming on today. The New Jersey Policy Perspective, an amazing nonprofit research organization that works on a lot of issues that involve all of us. And the gentleman who leads this organization, this nonprofit, is a brilliant guy. I don't want to embarrass him because he doesn't see himself as brilliant as I see him. But Brandon P. McKoy is absolutely one amazing young man. He is a thought leader. He is a man of integrity. He is dealing with some of the very tough issues that are facing not only our society here in New Jersey, but major issues across the nation. So, without further ado, we are going to bring on right now none other than our guest, and I really would like to see some of your comments. I don't know um, what happened to it, but we'll put that in. Our guest, Brandon McKoy. Brandon, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Good to see you.
Oh yeah, it's, you know what? As they say, it's good to be seen and not viewed, right? So
That's right.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for coming on to LaRue's Cafe. This is your second time
Mhm.
joining us. First of all, how are you and your wife doing uh, during this pandemic?
Not doing bad. I gotta say, I think when people say "How's everything," that's a pretty relative question these days.
It
um,
surely is.
but all things considered, doing well. Everybody's healthy and safe, and still working, which is a blessing. So doing pretty well, and just trying to keep our heads down and do what we got to do.
Yeah, it looks as though we're going to be in it for the long haul. You know,
Hmm.
I've been visiting, which I normally didn't, but visiting some of the dollar stores because I think as some of the sleepers out there for things that we need, I put together this emergency kit. And
Yep.
everybody says, "What's an emergency kit? What do you have in an emergency kit?" Well, I don't plan to come out after the end of October.
Hmm.
I'm doing all of my doctor's appointments now. All of my medications, I'm going to make sure I have 6 months supplies, and also all of the disinfectants and all I need. So I went to a dollar store and got some of the aerosol disinfectants.
Hmm.
Came home and began to match up ingredients. And I said, "Uh-oh, butane? No. Oh, protein? No." So I went back and I said to them, I said, this stuff in this can, while it's only $5 or something, it's carcinogenic. And the
Hmm.
guy didn't even argue with me. He said, "You want to return it?"
He said, "I'm
I
not
was
trying to
like,
fight." He don't want to
"Oh,
fight.
so this stuff that you're selling is actually creating cancer." So I would say to our viewers today, we are looking for bargains, yes. We are looking to stock up on things we know we're going to need in the future, yes. Please, please, LaRue's Cafe viewers, read your labels, please.
Hmm.
Don't just buy anything.
Yep.
So, Brandon, we see how you're doing during the pandemic, and we're going to talk about a lot of policy issues that are going on in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And I think my dog is somewhere out. I hope my granddaughter's going to put Brother Jackson where Brother Jackson belongs, and certainly not out there barking. But we have this national issue going on, and we talk about the two pandemics. The one pandemic, of course, is COVID-19. The other pandemic is racism.
Mm-hmm.
And it cannot go by me that you are a Black man in America.
Yep.
It appears to me.
Yep.
How are you viewing all of what's going on with what I call social injustice and what they're calling the Black Lives Matter movement?
Honestly, it's good to see. I think I saw a Cornell Western interview where, someone was asking him, how do you feel about all the sort of injustice and how you feel about how people are responding in the streets? And he said, thank God people are responding. Could you imagine seeing the murders that we see as frequently as we see them and people doing nothing? So I think seeing people react, seeing people rally and protest is good. And we want to see more of it. We want to see more of people calling their government to account, because what we're talking about here is, basically wanton murder by representatives of the state, by police officers who are representatives of the state. And when, we all pay our taxes, and even if we didn't, we live here in this country, live here in this nation, and we all deserve to be protected and to be safe. And being murdered and killed and sort of terrorized by representatives of the state itself, and of the government, is just unacceptable, no matter what we're talking about. And so it's good to see people reacting to these issues. And also, for me, we work on budgets a lot, because for us, the budget, whether you're talking about a city budget or a county budget or a state budget or a federal budget, should be a moral document. It should represent and reflect the needs of all residents and what people need to be, productive and to thrive and to be healthy and to be safe and to be whole. And so to see people sort of digging into the issue of police accountability by looking at police budgets is some, an unexpected twist that me and my colleagues are very happy to see. And really, it's a new avenue, and and for us, the budget is really a critical tool for advancing equity and advancing racial justice in and of itself, and one that needs more attention for sure. So, on the professional side of things, it is an interesting moment to be in, and one that we recognize that we have an important role to play, and we don't take that lightly. And as a result, I think we put out a statement a couple months ago, especially after George Floyd's murder, so sort of reaffirming our commitment to these issues, and also saying, there are things that we can do to address these problems. And, it's whether it is addressing the racial wealth gap, which is just tremendous and absurd, whether it is addressing the disproportionate number of people of color in prison and in jail compared to other populations, and how that is very disruptive to communities and families, whether it's the unjust war on drugs and how that has been just a multi-decades long campaign of terror against various communities just because of who they are. There's a lot of things we can do now to address these challenges, because when we see the murder of someone like George Floyd, you have to see all the things that led up to that. And it's not just that one incident, but it's also he was unemployed at the time, I believe. He was looking for work, and he was hanging out, and he was if he had been doing what he would prefer to be doing, he would not have been in that situation. But even being in that situation, police departments should not be responding in that way. And so even how we use government resources to not just train police departments, but also make sure that they're representative of the communities that they serve, make sure that, they're not bringing a handgun to every incident. Not every incident requires a handgun presence. There's a ton of things we can be doing right now to make sure that not only are people being able to have work, find work, be paid properly, and do what they got to do to provide for themselves and their families, but also that government in and of itself is responding in a way that is responsible towards the needs of everyone. And so there's a lot to do. And then just personally as a Black man, My father's Black. My father's from North Carolina, from Raleigh, Durham. Grew up on a farm. My mom's from Panama, so I'm Afro-Latino, actually. And just, it is, let's just say there's not a lot of folks, and you know this for sure, when you walk into the State House or you're doing working in politics and policy in Trenton, not a ton of folks who look like me or look like you. And I think there's an additional responsibility and weight to respond in this moment and make sure that certain truths are being told, and that certain people who have for a very long time refused or failed to hear those truths, make sure they're hearing them now. We did a webinar with a gentleman named Otis Raleigh, who works for a foundation, and he said, if people don't hear you, then make sure they feel you, because it's far too long that we've asked and protested for and tried to get these rights and tried to get equal treatment. If that's not going to be delivered, then representatives are definitely going to feel the pressure to make sure that those things are delivered.
Well, very well said. And I want to just talk a couple of seconds, because you made me think. You always make me think when you speak on issues. And you made me think about the whole issue of systemic racism. Mm-hmm. There's such a debate going on right now. And I think that among white people, some whites may think, well, I'm not racist. What are you talking about? Systemic racism? Are you trying to blame it on me? And no, that's not what we're talking about. And I think that you may be in an interracial marriage. Mm-hmm. In my family, my twin is in an interracial marriage. My sister, my aunt, and several nieces and nephews. In our family, we kind of laugh when we weren't social distancing, mm-hmm. but when we had family gatherings and people walked around with the Frisbee T-shirt, if folks drove up and said, who is this family? They wouldn't know whether the family was Black, white, or Latino, mm-hmm. because our family is so intertwined ethnically.
Yep.
But the one thing that I don't think that people understand about systemic racism, one thing is our language. When you talked about going into the State House, mm-hmm. I've been doing this work now for 44 years. And I've been actually lobbying in the State House for over 30 years. And it used to just rub me the wrong way after I testified, and someone white would come up to me and say, you are so articulate. Well, golly day, what the hell do you think I went to college for? I know I'm articulate. You don't have to tell, I was an English teacher. But, folks look at me. They don't look at white people and say, you are so articulate. Mm-hmm. I also notice, I'm very colorful with my glasses. My hairdo has always been ethnic. My colors, I wear ethnic clothes. And they'll come and they'll say, oh, Jeannine, you're so colorful today. And I couldn't believe it. One white woman actually said to me, Jeannine, you wear these type clothes and you just look so creative and so artsy. If I put these clothes on and walked into the White House, people would think that I had on my wash clothes. What? Do you not know what that sounds like? See, they thought they were giving me a compliment because I can wear these things and it looks artsy. Well, no, what you're saying is that these African-based clothing is something that otherwise would be unprofessional, but for whatever reason, Jeannine LaRue puts affirmative action into the clothing area and it passes. Mm-hmm. Tell me how you feel about some of this stuff. Systemic racism.
Well, it's definitely a frustrating thing, because I think a lot of folks try to boil down racism to, interpersonal interactions. Someone did something to somebody else directly, or someone said an offensive word to somebody else directly. And like that's, a huge problem, and it still exists majorly. But when we're talking about systemic racism, what we're talking about is the ways in which certain people are disadvantaged by systems. That's why it's systemic, right? And so, there was a story about a week ago, I think. Time is sort of irrelevant right now, so I'm having trouble remember when things happen. But I think about a week ago that this couple, a Black woman and a white man, were trying to sell their home, and when they had their family pictures up that showed both of them, they got an appraisal, and they were having trouble getting an appraisal that they thought was fair, that was appropriate for the market. And so what they did was they took down their family pictures, and when they were having open houses, they just had the white husband stay home. And when they did that, the appraisal that they got jumped by like 20 or 25%. That's exactly what we're talking about. Why? Nothing changed, right? Zero changed. But because the appraiser thought, oh, this is a white man who lives here by himself or whatever it is, or it's just a white person. Oh, well, the value of this home is better. Same thing, you look at we both live in Trenton. The value of homes here, the house I bought, if I were to buy this house in Jersey City, it would be worth $1 million at least.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, Jersey City and Trenton are a little bit different, but that gap should not be that much. And so when we talk about systemic racism, we're talking about the ways in which, because you'll have a lot of white people say, well, I didn't do that, or I didn't trade slaves, or my family didn't trade slaves. That's not the point. The point is that there are systems in place that disadvantage others. And even if you or your family did not participate in those systems in an explicit, direct manner, guess what? Ta-Nehisi Coates has a great thing he said. I think he testified at Capitol Hill once on a reparations bill. And he said, you know what? By living in this country, you inherit both its benefits and its deficits. Mm-hmm. So if you want to celebrate the 4th of July, and you want to celebrate Memorial Day, and you want to celebrate all the things that are celebratory, but you don't, you equally have to accept all the things that are not so great. And so, even if your family wasn't quote unquote here for the slave trading, well, guess what? They weren't here for the Revolutionary War either, but you're celebrating the Revolutionary War, right? And so you also have to take responsibility for the ways in which the country has disadvantaged certain groups over others and actually move us towards a more perfect union. That's what the Declaration of Independence and that's what the Constitution is all about. And so being part of that effort, recognizing the ways in which various communities have not just been left behind, but pushed behind, and being honest about that is going to be critical. And I think one of the things that we're going to need at some point to get over this in a really good way, authentic way, is, when South Africa was getting over apartheid, they actually had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, right? They had a formal process for people to come forward and talk about it without fear of repercussion or fear of any penalty. And that was, I actually know some folks who live in South Africa, and they talk, or from South Africa, and they talk about how critical that was for the country to actually move past what had happened in an important way. But we just say, hey, let's not talk about it. Just, forget about it. That was long ago. No, you have to formally recognize the harm that's been committed, the harm that continues to be committed, and figure out how are we going to move past this in a way where we can move towards a better place.
Well, and I think that you've made a lot of key points here. One that I'm just going to grab onto is that whole truth, because that's one of the things that I try to do with LaRue List Cafe. My Facebook friends, I have 5,000. I stay at the max 5,000 Facebook friends. Mm-hmm. And whenever I get an interesting friend request, and I know I have some Facebook friends who either they don't like me or we're on the opposite side of everything, I'll go through the list every month and I'll find about 30 friends to kick them out, so that, so I can let folks who really care about what's going on come on in. But the reason I do the LaRue List Cafe is because my Facebook friends are very, very diverse. They're diverse as far as ethnic. They're diverse as far as denominations. I have a lot of gay Facebook friends and people who live in urban. Then I have a lot of folks, Facebook friends who don't even live in this country. But I have met them through other people. Mm-hmm. And so I try to, on LaRue List Cafe, to speak truth to power. Because what I find is the elephant in the room is normally the issue that unless you tackle it, there will never be change.
Yep.
And so I try to let people know, not all Black people are good. Not all white people are bad. Not all police are after black guys to kill them. And one of the things and ministers hate it when I say this, where is the most segregated place that people spend their time? On
Church.
Sunday, it's in church.
Mhm.
There is no place more segregated than a church. And you know what? Why is that? Why is it nobody's even thought about it? You know? So one day, we're not going to take up the whole 45 minutes to an hour on this, but I'll tell you right now, it's something we're going to talk about sometime in the future.
Yep.
So let's get to some of the issues, major issues that New Jersey policy perspective is dealing with right now. I know you have some really phenomenal issues. You do a lot of great research there. Tell me, what are some of the issues on your plate right now?
Yeah, so we are what we call a think and do tank. So we do research, on various issues, and then we don't just let that research sit on a shelf and collect dust. We make sure it gets into the hands of lawmakers and journalists and everyday citizens. So everybody's working with some better information when it comes to making decisions around policies and laws. And so our core bucket areas are tax and budget policy, because again, the budget is a moral document and the budget is everything, right? You could pass every law you want, but if you don't fund what you're trying to do, it's not real. It doesn't exist, right? And so trying to make sure that we have tax policies that implement fair taxation, that make sure that even the wealthy are paying their fair share, which they're not, and making sure that we are actually funding the things that help grow our economy, like education, like transportation, like housing development, and also making sure we're funding them in the places that need them the most, right? We also do work in healthcare policy, because that's just crucial to making sure people are healthy and safe. We do work in economic security issues. So basically things like, wages, so minimum wage, paid sick leave, paid family leave, pay equity issues with regards to, discrimination between men and women and others, a lot of things in there. And then also we do a lot of work with regards to immigration, because New Jersey is a state that has a significant immigrant population, always has, probably always will, as long as federal government's doing what's supposed to do. And making sure that immigrants are able to come to New Jersey and be productive and contribute and take care of themselves and their families and have the opportunities that everyone has is really critical. And so those are our 4 core areas, but we do work on other issues that, the budget is good, because no matter, everything ties to the budget. So we can really justify whatever we want to work on. But we do other work in sort of drug policy sometimes. We do other work in education policy sometimes. And we put out some work on that recently. And 2 new areas that we're trying to grow our work in are environmental policy. So especially climate change, for a coastal state. This is really critical stuff for New Jersey, and figuring out how we're going to address, flooding and rising sea levels and all that type of stuff. And then another area that we're growing our work in is pro-democracy, and making sure that our elections are competitive, that they are representative, because the worst thing you can have is elected officials who do not feel as though they are beholden to voters. And I think New Jersey has a couple of issues that it needs to fix in order to make sure that we have a more robust democracy.
So, and that's a full plate. That's a really full plate. At Kaufman Zito Group, I represent clients in the area of voter reform. And you mentioned about fair elections. Do you play any other role in elections and campaigns? What do you do there?
So we don't do anything, with regards to individual elections or races. We're nonpartisan. People say, and we're progressive, but that doesn't mean we're Democrat or Republican. I don't care what letter is next to your name, as long as you're pushing the right policies. And so we're nonpartisan. The only thing that we hope to secure and advance in the state is, expanding the right to vote. There's been a lot of work lately on making sure for those who are, either currently or formerly incarcerated, that they have the right to vote, and things around making sure that elections are secure and safe. And so, what are the machines that people are voting on, and can they be tampered with? And are there changes we need to make there? But also just the system of elections in New Jersey is very, very unique and very, very different than most places. The design of our ballots is one that privileges, those who get the support of the county party. And then you end up, the line, as folks in the know call it. And there's a lot of issues with the line. And basically, when it comes to primaries, those aren't very competitive elections, because if you're in that A column or that A row, however they're structured, you're
Mickey
gonna have
Mouse.
to take advantage. Yeah, it's very hard to win if you're not in the line. And so parties have a big influence over who wins in primaries, and those are not competitive elections, and that is not democracy. And so we are pushing for more representative and a more robust democracy, because at the end of the day, what you need to make sure that elected officials are beholden to and responsive to the needs of the public. And when they are not, that is when you get issues of injustice and issues of distrust and issues of lack of transparency. And I think depending on who you talk to, we have a lot of those issues in New Jersey.
Well, let me tell you something. It's no surprise to most people, because I'm a former elected official at the local level. I was an elected a municipal official for 12 years in Winslow Township. So I'm a registered Democrat. But I will tell you, I have supported and worked for, and I don't make any apologies for it, some Republican candidates. I was very, very engaged, even though I couldn't represent her. I held a fundraiser for Diane Allen when she ran for Senate. I worked for the reelection. I actually chaired the Independents and Democrats for the reelection of Christine Todd Whitman. I worked for the reelection of Governor Thomas Kean. And the reason I point that out is that I believe that when officials just take a certain group of people, take their votes for granted, that it really is time to look in the mirror and make a decision. Are you going to vote for parties, or are you going to vote for your issues and your interests?
Yep.
And of course, I'm going to be very active over the next several weeks for my interest in this presidential race. But I am telling you right now, I have absolutely no problems supporting independents, supporting Republicans, none whatsoever. And some Democrats don't like it, but I quite frankly don't give a squat, because I believe that when people, and I write checks for candidates, but I withhold checks. So I'm glad to hear your perspective on elections. So you have an event coming up, which I am so honored to be a part of. And I will tell you, the reason I'm coming on, I will come on at the time you assigned to me. But also on that same evening, I am so honored. Earlier in the day, I'll be interviewing Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver. And then at 7:15 that evening, I'll be interviewing former Governor John Corzine for the League of Women Voters Gala, which will be on the 16th. So we're going to do our interviews for that. But tell me about your gala. Tell me about the honorees. Tell me about the purpose of the gala and how people who are a part of this viewing right now can get involved.
So you can learn about it if you go to our website, njpp.org. And on the right side, you'll see a little thing that says Celebration of Progress virtual reception. And you can click there to get the information. But basically every September or so, we do an event to recognize, some incredible leaders in New Jersey and elsewhere who've really done a lot to push forward what we consider to be, critical policies that improve the lives of people in really important ways. And so usually we have this event, in person. We have a little bit of an awards reception and dinner and stuff like that in New Brunswick at the Heldrich, but that would be irresponsible to do right now. So we're having it virtually. And so we're going to have the awards reception. The keynote speaker is Dr. Derek Hamilton, who is an incredible economist, a Black man who's actually, he's at Ohio State University, but he's actually going to be at the New School soon. One of the real leaders on thinking about economics and public policy in a way that centers justice and really is the perspective that NJPP tries to push every day. So he's going to be the keynote, and he's wonderful. And I can't wait to have him have people hear from him, because he's just somebody that I personally look to when I'm trying to understand things better. And then we're going to have, we're going to give awards to 4 incredible people, including you, for all your work and all of your incredible advocacy and just leadership over many years here in the state of New Jersey, especially with regards to recently the driver's license victory. And you were very instrumental in helping us secure that.
That was a fun piece of legislation. That was a tough legislation.
It sure was. Absolutely. So, want to honor you and recognize you for that. And then the other 3 folks will be June Choi, who was a former mayor and actually former board chair of NJPP. So I want to recognize his service to the organization there. Ray Castro, who was he recently retired from NJPP. He was our senior health policy analyst and one of the premier health policy analysts in the entire country. Was actually critical to saving the Affordable Care Act when it was under attack from the Trump administration in the first year, and did a lot of incredible, original, unique research that was used nationwide to help save the ACA. And then last but not least is Bob Greenstein, who's the president of the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities in Washington, D.C. He's been the president since he founded it in the 70s. And it's just the things that that's phenomenal. Yeah, that organization has accomplished amazing things. We work with them on a daily basis. And Mr. Greenstein's just been somebody who I would not be where I am without him and his efforts. And he's recognized by presidents and folks all across the nation and really internationally. So he's retiring at the end of the year. Okay. And so we're going to recognize him. And then so we'll go through that program. That should be a lot of fun, because you gotta have fun. You gotta celebrate when you do good stuff. So we want to do that. And then just to make it not stuffy, we're gonna actually for the last 15 or 20 minutes, we're gonna do 3 rounds of trivia that anybody can take part in. And because we are actually launching a new website and new logo at the end of the year, and so the people who win those rounds of trivia can win some swag with our logo on it, whether it be like a canvas bag, some mugs, some stuff like that. But it should be a fun evening. It's going to start at 6 p.m. It should go to about 7:15, 7:30.
I am so very, very honored. I'm humbled by it, and thank you for this recognition.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for everything you've done.
Thanks. So there we have it. Brandon McKoy, who I just love. I love your brilliance. Every time I'm in your presence, I learn something. It makes me think. And who knows, maybe you'll keep dementia off of me for a couple more years. When you wake up and you're 70 years old, I'm like, oh, dear Lord, is this the day? So far, I still remember my name and what I had for breakfast.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Thank you for coming on, Brandon. And we will have you on many, many more times on LaRue's Cafe. You're always a wonderful guest. And I will see you, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise on Thursday.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So, folks, guests, thank you so much. That is LaRue's Cafe for today. And we know those of you who will not see this live, we know that you continue to watch LaRue's Cafe on and on and on for many days to come. Keep hitting it and sharing it around. I hope you've enjoyed this show today. And remember what I have on my shirt today. You can be a good person with a kind heart and still say no. LaRue's Cafe. Join us again. Tomorrow, we're going to be interviewing the gentleman, John Thomas, who just an amazing man, passed away last week. And his daughter is coming in and going to talk about the real Brother Thomas. It is going to be a wonderful show. We can't wait to have Pam on here tomorrow. And until then, let's talk about it.